This is Red America Radio. Straight up conservative talk for today's red-blooded American. With the host of Eye on DC and Eye on South Florida's Karen Turk. And Dr. Chris Metzler, political commentator and best-selling author. Making radio great again. Red America Radio.
And welcome back to another Saturday in South Florida.
Sunny South Florida, folks.
You know, one day we're going to pre-record the show and it's going to be raining, Chris. I thought about this and people are going to listen to it and they're going to be like, what?
Yeah, it's actually raining.
So if it's raining, forgive us because we are recording a little bit early. But you know what? You're probably onto something because 80% of the time here in beautiful South Florida, it's sunny. So I think we can pretty much use the 80-20 rule there and be safe.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
I think we're accurate with that.
We are. We're pretty accurate. We're pretty accurate on politics here on this show,
We
too.
definitely are.
We definitely are. And there's been so much going on, and we have such a divided America these days, and we have such a good narrative, I think, about race and what people find offensive. But in some ways, too, we have a very hypocritical dialogue going on.
Yeah, we do, and that's the important thing. That's what I think people should really love about America: the fact that we've got the ability to have these conversations and to get it all out there rather than holding back. And you know, everybody knows you and I don't hold back.
Yeah, and you know, who knew that there were so many white people that have dressed in blackface?
Oh, yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah, I mean, it was
Who knew?
the kind of thing that, you know, I never even thought about that.
I never really thought about it either. And now I'm trying to rack my brain and remember, you know, high school's kind of a blur. College is blurry, too. So, you know, I'm trying to go back to all the parties I went to and all the costumes that people wore and try to think of to myself, was this something that people did that we just totally ignored because back then we didn't find it offensive like we do today?
Yeah, because I was thinking about the same thing, and I just didn't even, it was not the kind of thing that I remembered anyone doing.
I don't remember it either. And if they did, I mean, I would think that it was something that we probably didn't take notice of because maybe now, like, it's such a dialogue and such something that we realize is offensive.
Sure.
I don't know if in the 80s, when, you know, this is it the governor of Virginia?
Yes.
The governor of Virginia. I don't know whether or not what he did was viewed as offensive as it is now.
Yeah, and most likely not. I mean, and I think that's the whole thing, this idea of things that are, you know, now offensive, which weren't offensive then. But it's important to be able to bring that out and say, yeah, I did it.
Right.
And move on.
Right, and move on.
That's the big thing. But I can categorically say I've never dressed in whiteface.
Yeah, you've never dressed in whiteface. We could actually kind of make this a thing. But what if dressing in whiteface, that would make you like a mime?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever dressed as a mime?
I have never dressed as a mime.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about any pictures surfacing of you as a mime.
No, but I did wear a white wig when I was completing my degree at Oxford.
Oh.
That's the only thing.
Wow.
Because it was required.
Do you think that at some point we're going to be able to find that offensive or no?
Probably.
Maybe.
Yeah, at some point.
You know, I think the biggest mistake that he made for most of America is that he didn't just own it. It almost was like he wanted to like backtrack out of it, especially when they showed the pictures of him wearing exactly the same pants and costume as like the next day.
Right.
So, I mean, it was pretty blatantly obvious to most of us that it was him. Why wouldn't he have just said, hey, you know what, back in the 80s, I was a stupid kid. I was in college. I didn't realize it was offensive to anybody. You know, I dressed up like this for Halloween. You know, my friend did it too. Gosh, I'm sorry about that. Now that I realize it's offensive, like I feel like a jerk.
Right, and that's exactly what he should have done. But if you look at the Attorney General now, he came out very quickly and said, yes, the Attorney General of Virginia, I did dress in blackface before. So he came out, put it out there, you know, that kind of thing. But then you also in Virginia have the lieutenant governor.
Yeah, I knew you were going with this.
Yeah, with the whole sexual.
And he's black.
Yes. Yeah.
And he's black, and now he's got these sexual abuse allegations against him.
Right, and that's the whole thing. So you have kind of, you know, the triumvirate there. And meanwhile, the Commonwealth is not being served because you've got all these distractions that are going on.
Oh, we are so screwed up with these distractions. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's
we
really
spent so much time on that. And for the lieutenant governor, again, the issue is he knew that this was out there. When back in the day from the Ed Gillespie campaign, he already knew this was out there. get it together.
But it's a topic of the day.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden it wasn't something that people cared about back the last time, but now all of a sudden that it's become a trending topic and we want to believe all women. Well, all of a sudden somebody's going to dig this up on him and expose it because they're looking to, I mean, this is the way that politics works.
And it's dirty tricks. I mean, that's the way that politics works. And if you look at the whole Me Too movement, look, I fundamentally believe that no one should be able to get away with sexual abuse. So I don't want people to say, oh, well, he said that women. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, however, is this Me Too movement, we need to seriously examine that. Believe the women immediately. And here's the other.
You want to know what? I got to tell you something. As a woman, and I'm going to say this, and of course I'm going to offend all sorts of people in saying this.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think we should believe all women with whatever they say. Like, I don't think that that's the way that life works or the way the world works.
Right.
And, you know, I feel really bad for anybody that's in a situation where they're uncomfortable or for anybody who's been sexually abused.
Right.
And I do believe there's a lot of stories out there, and I believe we have a serious problem.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you can't just believe all women. You know,
Yeah.
I've met a lot of women that are pretty full of it.
Yeah. Well,
throughout my years on this planet.
and that's the thing. But this Me Too thing has become this very, kind of left thing where they've come together now and saying, oh, yeah, they're Me Too. But here's for me, as a conservative, now Democrats understand how Judge Kavanaugh felt when this entire thing was going on, and they were saying, oh, he did it. Now, here you've got Justin Fairfax, the lieutenant governor, and people are like, well, we shouldn't rush to judgment.
Right. Well, that's exactly where I was going, because I'm sitting here shaking my head, and of course our listeners can't see that, but I'm shaking my head at you because I'm like, but they're not even going with that. They're not even going with what's logical. They're now going to spin it and be like, oh, this is totally different. Why is this totally different?
There's no difference.
And you want to know what I have a problem with these women that don't come forward? Because, again, I think we have to, again, elevate the narrative in a positive way to empower women that if something happens to you or you feel uncomfortable, that you need to speak up right away. I mean, having 3 adult daughters myself and raising girls, I think I've done a pretty good job. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. They might feel differently, but I think I've done a pretty good job of educating them that if somebody does something to you that you don't like, it's your job. It's your job as your personal responsibility for yourself to speak up right away.
Exactly.
And from what I heard, the woman had a relationship with this lieutenant governor for 15 years after this incident.
Yeah, exactly.
So you want to know what? I have a real issue with somebody says, something happened to me and I feel so uncomfortable about it. I hate this person and this person, I'm a victim and they abused me. But why would you carry on a 15-year relationship?
Well, and here's the interesting thing, too, relative to her. She, of course, is one of these people. Her primary studies is in gender studies. She looks at the issues of Me Too. She looks at Me Too issues, all of those kinds of things, which for me raises an interesting question, which is she trying to seek a prominent position in the Me Too movement? Just a question.
Well, listen, you know what? Everybody has an agenda, and people are opportunists, whether we want to admit it or not.
And that's right.
You know, and I think we need to raise the narrative on that, too, because it puts a much more realistic spin on everything.
Absolutely.
Everything. So how long, here's my prediction, your prediction, I want to hear your prediction. How long do you think before Bernie Sanders has a picture come out with him in blackface?
Oh, it's going to be soon.
How long? When's it going to be?
I think probably a week or so.
A week or so. So you got to stay tuned for that.
Yeah, because I know he has one.
And in the meantime, we have one of my favorite black conservatives who's going to be calling in here. We have Pastor Mark Burns. And he's been an amazing inspiration for me. I've heard him speak a lot.
Yes.
I follow him online. He sends me the nicest, most inspirational texts, and I appreciate it so much. You know, and I just think he's somebody who really brings a refreshing viewpoint into the conservative movement.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait to get his opinions on some of the stuff that's going on and this blackface stuff and everything else. Yeah. We'll be right back.
Still using lamestream media for news? Stop being a victim to clickbait and visit Populist Wire. They're delivering real news to over 100 million people a year. Visit Populist Wire on Facebook or at populistwire.com.
Listen up, red-blooded conservatives. Divided we stand. The Search for America's Soul by legal scholar, political analyst, best-selling author, and host of Red America Radio, Dr. Christopher Metzler, is a must-read. Metzler destroys the failed policy of the left on immigration, border security, fake news, racism, swamp politics, and takes on white liberals. A significant statement of politically and economically conservative ideas applying to today's America and that are sure to gain influence in decades to come. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
The NFRW, National Federation of Republican Women, brings together conservative women and raises their voices all over America. Join our movement. Get involved in your local federation and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
And we're back.
You know, there's nothing that Jewish girls like better than a Christian pastor who happens to be a black conservative. I'm a big fan. Pastor Burns, I'm so glad you're on our show today.
So honored, Karen. So happy to be here.
I'm so glad. And we've had so much going on, you know, with the State of the Union and with everything, this crazy stuff with all these people in Virginia, which I'm sure is not isolated to Virginia. But I couldn't wait to have you on the show and talk about some of this stuff. This salacious blackface situation and just what's happening in America right now. What's going on? Are they just trying to create a racial divide between all of us conservatives?
Karen, I think you're right. I mean, again, it's all about divide and conquer, and that's the only way that they can try to defeat the president. And to be honest with you, with the whole blackface that are coming out, this is all within the Democratic Party and not the Republican Party. And I want to make note of that. I mean, to me, this is simply the true face of what the Democratic Party is all about. They've been masking, their support around the strong black support that they receive. But the reality of it is the Democratic policies that keep black people and people of color in the economic slavery situations that many of us find ourselves in. And so this is simply, I think, a revolution that's taken place to remind black people and minorities in this country, Democrats don't mean you well. Stop voting for them overwhelmingly and start looking at the policies of conservatives that are simply trying to break the back of poverty through the policies like our president is putting forward.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We've talked about that. Chris and I have talked a lot about this, and we've talked about this on the show before and had a lot of guests on, African-American guests who have expressed the same thing, that, there's this pull by the Democratic Party to keep people almost enslaved to the Democratic Party. And it's really sad that as Americans, we are not identifying that and really talking about it more.
Yeah, and that's a thing, Pastor. I mean, you've always made the point that it is about economic growth and development. It is about breaking the poverty of the cycle of poverty. It's about free market ideas. It's about morality. It's about you've always made that point. And I think what we still keep seeing is the failed policies of the left relative to blacks. And but part of the problem, I think, is from the conservative side, we just have to message better on the fact that we are actually doing this stuff. We're not just talking about it, we're actually doing it. I think that's a task that we have to take up with great strength.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that there is a messaging issue with the conservative movement that we have to identify.
Yes.
How do the Republican Party, how do the conservatives echo the message? I think the president did an amazing job at the State of the Union by simply reminding America, listen, I'm not about, and he said it a long time ago, I'm not going to play color politics, I'm not going to play identity politics, I'm only going to perform. Mm-hmm. And it's not about whether you're black or whether you're white. If the tide rises, all the boats in the tide rise together. But the fact is, the criminal justice reform bill that was passed, the First Step Act that was passed, and you're talking about the economic opportunity zones that's being created. I mean, you're talking about the fact that African American and Hispanic American and women unemployment has reached an historical all-time low. Now, for African Americans and Hispanic Americans, we're talking about this is the lowest that it has ever been in the history of the unemployment rate. The history. There are more black people working in America than any other time in the history of this country. That is under the watch of Donald Trump. 5 million Americans are off of food stamps. I mean, unemployment has reached a low, is at its lowest in over half a century. That's for all Americans. These are the things that the president is actually doing. Democrats can continue to use fear. They can continue to use race baiting, even though they are the ones that has the black faces. They're the ones, I mean, even when I did the black face of Hillary Clinton and everybody want to bring that back up again, you know, I didn't apologize for tweeting that. I only apologize for those that it offended. But the story is still true. Hillary Clinton, the Democratic Party, they will paint themselves in blackface to try to pretend as though they really care about minorities in this country. President Trump is actually doing it. He is not going to tap dance for nobody. He's not going to kumbaya. He's not putting hot sauce in his back. He's not going to in his bag like Hillary Clinton. He's simply going to put things into action, and he is doing it through the policies that are being created.
Yeah, and I feel like, and we've talked about this before too, is like the more that we focus on race and the differences between us, and the more we don't focus on the fact that at the end of the day, we are all Americans. We're all Americans.
Absolutely.
I don't care what color you are, what creed you are, what religion you are. We are all Americans. Why are we not focusing on that positive?
Well, it's also, you know, the issue of political correctness and the fact that we have to be hyphenated. I refuse to use the term African American because I'm American. You know, all of this hyphenation is a further division.
Should I not be using that? I just used it earlier.
No,
Am I not
no.
allowed to use that anymore? I'm so confused about what I'm supposed to call people.
I'm just
so
saying.
confused.
I'm just saying. For me, the hyphenation. I don't like the hyphenation stuff. Only because it's further division. At what point do we get to the fact that we're all American?
Well, and all black people are not necessarily from Africa. So that's also, I always felt like that was a problem. But yet, you know, we're just all trying to not offend people. I walk around every day and I offend people every single day. And sometimes, like the pastor, you do something and you have to apologize and you own it.
Yeah.
Which is what the biggest issue, I think, in all of this is for these Democrats, Pastor, is they don't own it. They make a mistake and they don't own it.
Right. Yeah, they don't own it. And the fact is, again, they understand, and black people are waking up, and black people are getting it. I mean, we're moving. I mean, the Democratic Party is beginning to lose the stronghold of the vast majority of black voters. I talk to them all the time. I don't care what the mainstream media says to you. I'm telling you right now, they're discovering that even with the black president, the things that President Trump has done in 2 years was never done in 8 years for black people in America. That's a fact. And so now with this black face coming up, we're getting a true picture of what the Democratic Party really is. And I can go on and on and start dropping names of some of the DNC leaders, black leaders, that will attest the same thing that I'm saying to you. I mean, so they're discovering, you know, that they've been building their name off the backs of minorities in this country, and they're going to do whatever it takes to continue to paint the picture that Republicans and conservatives, and especially Donald Trump, are racist and we're race baiting and we're divisive. And that's not the case at all. The fact is, black people, as long as we in mass vote Democrat, we would never, ever get exactly what we need to help make our communities better. Donald Trump is doing it without the vast support of the black community, not because he's playing identity politics, but simply because it's the right thing to do. And that's why he's a great president.
Yeah, and you know, the part of the division is because division sells relative to the race baiters and the poverty pimps, who still are a major part of the Democratic Party. If you look at those folks such as Al Sharpton, if you look at Jesse Jackson, if you look at all of these people, they've never made an honest day's living in their lives. Instead, what they have done is trafficked in race and trafficked in division. And so doing that is how they have been able to amass what they have amassed. And so, you know, we have to be real about this stuff rather than pretending. I remember the day when Jesse Jackson would come and Sharpton essentially will shake down big organizations and say, if you don't want us to have a protest, pay us X, Y, Z. And that's the kind of stuff that we just simply have to expose.
It goes like against what they say their values are. Like, it's again just so hypocritical. And I need to come up with another word for hypocritical. We need another one. I need a synonym for that because it just again and again and again, it's the same thing. It's like on this broken record. And this has been going on for a really long time, and you look at somebody like Pastor Burns, who's looking to preach about unity and bring people together and, stop focusing on that racial divide. And then you have these people who are calling themselves a reverend or a pastor, and all they're doing is focusing on that racial divide and further dividing us as Americans.
Yeah, and so then, as a result of the fact that the pastor is actually preaching reality and preaching unity, then he is ostracized by saying, oh, well, he's nothing but a sellout Trump supporter. I mean, I wish, Pastor, that these folks who criticize us black conservatives would get an enriched vocabulary. Uncle Tom, sellout, all that stuff is played, so they need to come up with something else.
I agree with you. It is played out, and it is racism.
It is.
Again, just because you're a black person doesn't exclude you from racism. I think that's the point that I made, on CNN recently when I said just because you're black doesn't negate you from the ability to be a racist, because you can be a black racist too. And I think that wrong is wrong, no matter the color of the person who is saying it. Wrong is wrong. And Karen, you was bringing it up just a moment ago, and this is the first time I'm talking about it in an interview. I have a couple more later on today, but I want to give it to you first.
Oh, I like it. Yeah. We got the exclusive.
But essentially what you was talking about unity, and I said this on Periscope yesterday, and I said, I was watching. I'm not an Ellen fan. I'm not an Ellen, the show Ellen. I've never watched her show ever, but on YouTube yesterday I was seeing clips of her being showing acts of kindness. Now, I'm so disconnected from the Ellen show, I didn't even know that she speaks ill or spoke ill of our president. I had no idea. But my point is, as I was watching her show, I felt convicted to myself, and it actually brought tears in my eyes, because we have created this divide, even as conservatives too.
Yes.
Even in our line, you can't argue my support for the president. I'm not going to defend my support for the president. I don't have to prove to anybody at this point how loyal I am to the president. Eric Trump a couple of days ago talked about how loyal I am and how I am to the family, and I've stood the test of time, and I've not jumped ship like so many others have. But as I was watching Ellen be kind to people, it brought tears to my eyes, the joy that people were receiving when she would give them something for free. Now, keep in mind, I'm not an Ellen show fan. I've never watched a show ever in my life. These were just YouTube clips. And the Holy Spirit began to quicken me. And I began to feel ashamed, because I told myself I could never really want to connect with somebody like Ellen, because she's a liberal. She is, she doesn't believe what I believe. Her lifestyle is not what I would do. I've started putting all these reasons as to why I would not even try to connect. And then it hit me that as people were, that it hit me that I am guilty of doing the very same thing that I teach people not to do, and that is to judge people based off of what they do.
Right.
And I said, this is the only way that we can really begin to bring our nation together, is that you may be a Democrat, you may be a liberal, we may never agree politically, but we have to actively start looking for ways to come together. And one of those ways that supersedes all different divisions in our nations is kindness and love. And that's what hit me. that I may not be ever to connect with somebody like an Ellen who degrades our country and through the evil things she says about our president that I didn't know about, but now I know. But that's her right to do that. But But how can I connect with somebody who I completely disagree with politically?
Yeah.
And that is finding out ways to be kind and find out ways to show love. And that's what Jesus meant when he said that the greatest commandment is to first love your God with all your heart, and the second greatest is to love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't matter if they're gay. It doesn't matter if they're liberal. It doesn't matter if they're conservative. It doesn't matter if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't negate my strong stance as a conservative. I'm going to fight for babies. I'm going to fight to make sure the wall gets up. I'm going to fight to make sure our country is protected. But we got to stop hating on each other simply because we have a difference of opinion of politics. And I believe the president, that's why his State of the Union address was aligned with unity. How can we come together? He's the first time ever that he had just as many Democrats standing and clapping and shouting and screaming USA, USA, like one of his many rallies that I've done in the State of the Union address, because his message was right down the middle of unity. And how can we come together? And until we stop and do that, until we stop and start having those conversations, I don't care. This is what the Lord gave me, and I'm going to end it like this. Kindness and love has no allegiance to a political party. Kindness and allegiance has no kindness and love has no allegiance to a sexual preference. It has none of that exists. God says, love your neighbor. Love. And how can we come together? Through acts of kindness. And that's that's the message that I want to have to the world right now. I'm guilty, Karen. I'm guilty of helping create a divide by being such a strong, staunch supporter of what I believe in. But there's a way for me to be strong. There's a way for me to be immovable and still believe in what I believe, but still find the common ground with people who don't believe what I believe.
I love that, Pastor Burns. And, we're going to leave it on that note, a note of unity in America. And I want to thank you again. I miss you. I hope to see you soon. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Pastor.
Love y'all both.
Thanks. Stay tuned next Saturday for another episode of
Red America Radio.
Straight up conservative talk
for today's red-blooded Americans.